Hello and welcome to the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and today I am joined by the euphonium king of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I'm not even sure that's accurate. But I appreciate
I'm sure it's not.
maybe Mount Lebanon.
Maybe Mount Lebanon. Maybe the euphonium king of, although you're probably not even the best brass player in your neighborhood.
Actually, yeah, you're probably right, because Pete Sullivan
I know.
is like right around the corner. That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
You're the best euphonium player in your family. And
Probably true.
And you're better at euphonium than me. So there you have it.
True.
Yeah. So I wanted to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz Artist Model tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke, not the Pete Sullivan, but the Lance LaDuke Model euphonium mouthpiece.
See, joke's on who.
Right? Find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So we are sharing an old friend with you today. His name is Jose Sibaja. He plays trumpet in a group called Canadian Brass. No. Were you in the band when the band director introduced us as Dallas Brass?
I can't remember.
It was hilarious. You would remember if I think it was just before your time, where there was like this big, made this big deal about how important we were, and ladies and gentlemen, Dallas Brass, and it was very funny. Jose, our former colleague in Boston Brass. This is from last summer's Brass Junkies summer workshop, and we wanted to make this available again. We are not doing an event this summer. There's just so many that are being offered, but we are offering this at a severe discount in the archives. If you go to brassjunkies.academy, then you can get, there are sessions with 17 different artists. It's only $49. You've got Rex Richardson on trumpet, Chris Castellanos on horn, Taga Larson on trumpet from the Chicago Symphony, Mary Bowden. Jose, you're about to hear his session. It was a really good one. I really enjoyed Jose, so we're sharing that with you. J.D. Shaw, Jen Montone, Jeff Scott on horn, Joe Alessi, Donna Parks, John Lofton on trombone and bass trombone, Demondre Thurman, Gail Robertson, and Hiram Diaz on euphonium, Carol Yonch, Pat Sheridan, Richard White on tuba, and then there was some hangs. There was like a nightly hang. It's like 22 hours worth of content, and it's going to be up all summer long. So that's only $49 if you are interested. Some really cool conversations. And Jose talked about practicing, as you're about to hear. He talked a lot about basics, about how to approach basics. He talked about playing in different styles. He talked about how much you and I have meant to him and his artistic journey. No, he didn't talk about that. But it's good stuff.
Have fallen asleep during that.
Brett, you did. Brassjunkies.academy.
Well, and you'll notice if you listen to them, they have a different kind of tenor than the regular Brass Junkies episodes. These are way more about passing on educational information, and it's not like tons of road stories and
correct
flatulation jokes. So it's much more of a targeted examination of whatever the person was talking about. So that'll give you kind of an idea of what it was that we talked about with that. And so now, if you can't tell, we're kind of zip through these. So I'm going to thank the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, of which it is one. Thank you very much to the Papert School for being a long-term sponsor and supporter of the show. If you're interested in finding out all the groups you can play with, the folks you can study with, and you should because it's an amazing array of folks, go to the link in the show notes below. And very special thanks to Jim, Nothing to See Here, Nova, for making that possible. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Houchin Horns for being both our newest sponsor and just a really wonderful organization to work with. Houchin Horns aims to spread the joy of music through providing the highest level of product, services, and resources to the brass playing community. It's a premier brass pro shop with an impressive lineup of the best instruments, accessories, sheet music, and more. They stock the finest makes of brass instruments, including Adams, Bach, and Kahn, Selmer, Eastman, and Shires, Engelbert, Schmidt, Paxman, Tyne, which I've been mispronouncing, time and time again, and Yamaha among many others. And if you enter the promo code Junkies11 at online checkout, you will receive $500 off of your purchase of a new instrument from HouchinHorns.com. Thank you to HouchinHorns.com for making that possible.
You said, I'm pretty sure you said Perry Pappert, and then you just said among. All right. So I don't want to say any more nice things about this session from Jose because he was the lead trumpet in one of my quintets, and I was raised by Sam Palafian that you're just not supposed to be nice to those people because it encourages them. But this was a really good session, and we really appreciate Jose for joining us, and we hope that you enjoy it. Also, if you registered last summer for this, then check your email because you will have probably by the time this airs already have gotten a new login that you can actually rewatch it this summer. So thank you so much. Yeah, for no cost. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hope that was clear, but thank you for connecting those dots. I'm sending you an email asking you to buy it again. So no, that's not what we're doing. All of you, and there was like a huge response last summer. It was awesome. So you will all have access to this again. Thank you so much for your support. And without further ado, let us get to last summer's Brass Junkies Summer Workshop session from Boston Brass's Jose Sibaja. We are joined this afternoon by Mr. Jose Sibaja, lead trumpet of Boston Brass. How are you, Jose?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic, man. Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me. And
I didn't want to. Lance was the one that insisted, just for the record. But I just want to be upfront.
Obviously. I mean, let me just be upfront. I'm glad that Lance is here. Otherwise, I would not be here.
Fair enough. I walked into that one as well. So we are planning on, we're going to keep this loose as we're keeping all of them, but we're planning on talking to Jose about basics. He always talks about basics a lot in master classes, and he's really good at breaking that down. So I thought that he could help those of us who are young and old with that, and then also playing in different styles, which Jose, I really try to not say nice things about him when he is listening or when he's not listening. But there are many different styles where if you heard Jose playing in that style, then you would assume that was his main style. And, he doesn't have like 12 main styles, obviously, but he just has an amazing ear and an amazing adaptability to all that stuff. So we wanted to talk to him about that. And then also about being a chamber musician.
Please. Then I'm going to have to say nice things about you.
No. I wasn't fishing for a compliment. I mean, all you've done since you got on the call 17 minutes ago is bash my hair. So maybe, maybe just one, but it'll be fine. Well, if it happens organically, then that'll be great. So you always in master classes, you frequently would talk about basics. What does that concept mean to you? And then maybe just kind of start talking about that, and then we'll ask you some questions about it as we go.
Well, I think that to me, any positive feedback that I have from my instrument, it comes directly from what I do every morning. There's no secret to that. But the easiest that I am able to navigate through the instrument has, a direct correlation with how I do these basics and these fundamentals in the morning. It's easy for people to do a long tone, or to tell a kid how to do or just play long tones. But the key of playing long tones are not in the long tones. They are actually in the process of producing the tone. So for me, it's super important, especially when I am going down to the the fundamentals of the instrument, is to be as anal, sorry about the word, as possible towards the process of what I am trying to iron down every single day. Easier said than done, because there are so many distractions nowadays, and there are so many things that get into the way of our playing that it is important to keep cool. So my suggestion for people is, especially when they are starting the day with the instrument, is they need to rest as much as they play. So if they think that mentally their capability of staying focused is 2 minutes, then they should play only for 2 minutes, and then they should rest for 2 minutes, and then keep on, going for 2 minutes, and then for 2 minute segments, and then try to push it a little bit with time. But actually, if you start practicing fundamentals and you start doing basics, when you are not focused, is actually contraproducent to what you're doing. To what I my belief. If you start doing fundamentals while you're tired, it's again the same result, because instead of fostering good habits, you're acquiring bad ones, because you're going to have to make up for whatever it is that you're not doing correctly. Metronome and tuner, not for the sake of rhythm, but metronome and tuner because of the timing of their breath is so important, at least for me. I am always trying to the rhythmic aspect of playing the instrument, or the rhythmic aspect of starting a note, is that exactly for me. Has to be very rhythmical. It has to be on time. It doesn't matter what I choose it to be. It could be a quarter note, it could be a half note, it could be, a 16th note, but it has to be in rhythm. It has to be on time. For me to have more success, in order to make an appropriate, easy, and a sound that will help me improve every time I play. If I start to get loosey-woosey with my time, I notice it right away in my playing. That just on long tones itself. And then it's important to understand that when we play long tones, if our air is stagnant, it's contraproducent. If our air is not, it doesn't have a direction, it's not helping. It's actually harming us. So there's a lot of factors that I take into consideration when I am playing fundamentals, and especially long tones.
Can we stay there for a second?
Yeah.
So when you're playing, because I think long tones is a thing that just about everybody who's on this call or will ever see this call is a thing that they've either tried to do or have been told to do. Mm-hmm. And on the face of it, it's like a beginner can do a long tone. Mm-hmm. Except what's going on behind your eyeballs. And so when you're playing long tones, can you talk about the various things that are that you're focused on, just specifically with long tones, which is, that's just like day one, book one, exercise one. Mm-hmm. And you can stay there for years, but you have to be listening in a different way. So can you kind of unpack the different things you're listening for or thinking about?
Of course, man. The first thing that I'm listening for is rhythm. Number one. Before I even bring the horn to my face, I'm always, I have the metronome on, And
what speed? Or is it vary?
72. Around 72. And then I am first of all, very aware of how I'm taking air in and how I'm exhaling that air. It's very interesting when you hear Sam, or when you used to hear Sam or Pat, explain the concept of the breathing gym, and it was very interesting to hear other people saying that it doesn't apply or doesn't help higher instruments. I think that it definitely helps, totally. It's just a matter of translating what it means to be able to play on an instrument of higher tessitura. That's all. The way
what is that translation? So what
translates the way you exhale your air is completely different. And that goes also, and we can talk about that later. The way that you use your air when you're playing different styles of music, that changes as well. But when you're playing classical music, or you're trying to play a nice chorale, or you're trying to play something like that, that's the closest that it gets in a higher instrument to play to use breathing gym when you're playing in a bigger instrument. The way of exhaling that air with that warmth and that ease of using that air. Does that make sense?
I think so. I'm forgive the ignorance of this question. I'm a little brass guy. So the difference on the exhalation has to do what has to do with the speed or the intensity, or it's the focus of it.
The speed of the air,
yeah,
and also has to do with the intensity of the way you release that air for whatever it is that you want to accomplish.
I see.
On a higher instrument, so it's a much targeted.
Yeah. So if you do what we do, it's just going to into the instrument, and it won't do you any good.
It sounds like this. I don't know if you can hear this, and it's probably not going to be the most pleasant sound, but.
So it's super unfocused. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's like instead of
there's no
core to it.
Yeah, there's no core, and there's no direction of the air. There has to be a little bit more. It's like you're putting the same concept, but you're putting it into a straw.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Perfect.
You guys will have like a way bigger straw, and then I will have like a cocktail straw. You know?
Yeah, ours is like volume. It's just like more than better. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking about that in a rhythmical way every time. So let's say I'm going to play a long tone. I am always timing my breath, and I'm almost always timing the release of my breath, which is the most important part of that equation. If I don't time the release of my breath, the average for me missing a note increases immensely. So that's number one thing that goes into that. And then the number two is the physical awareness, how relaxed I am or how relaxed I'm not, and then I do things to address that, things from the breathing gym. That's basically it. And then when I start the process of making that sound, when I start the process of creating that tone, then that direction of air becomes the most important thing on earth. So if I am playing a long tone and I'm doing it correctly, let's say I have the metronome on. So my intention is not to decrescendo or crescendo or to do anything at the beginning. Exactly. And it's to try to make it as much as I can of a block, that it doesn't get affected or changed by anything.
Takes so much concentration to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, I'm a trained monkey by now, but yeah.
Well,
I wish that was a joke, but that's I've been doing it for so long that way, that when I'm doing something weird, it just jumps out, and that's what I'm referring to when I'm a trained monkey.
When things aren't going the way you want them to, when they're not the ideal, is there a normal cause, or is it a variety of causes, or what are the reasons that things might not be going the way you want them to?
Well, usually when the things are not going the way I want, the most thing, at least for me, that happens to me, first of all, has to do with tension, and then has to do with the size of my lips. When I am swollen from playing the night before, or I'm swollen from being dehydrated, or I'm swollen from traveling, and I'm swollen for so many reasons, where things take a weird turn for me. I'm always aware of air, so I'm always thinking about air that way. Thanks to Sam, and it's something that I learned from Sam when I was younger, and it usually tends to be one of those two things. People say, well, I'm tired. Yeah, well, when you're tired, this happens. You're probably tense because you're tired, and when you're tired, you're probably, if you had too much to drink the night before, you're going to be completely dehydrated, and your chops are going to be gigantic, So I try to focus immediately if I'm tired because I am tired physically, I focus immediately on the immediacy of the air.
To
That'll
get
probably
the vibration to just start as quickly as
exactly,
possible.
and try to get the tongue out as far away from
Out of
my
the-
sound as possible.
So it's here and not
Yeah,
instigated by the tongue.
Exactly.
And then from a physiological standpoint, if you have inflammation, what do you? I mean, what's to do? I mean,
You
if you're
cry.
dehydrated, you cry, but then you become more dehydrated.
That's right. No, I I usually take ibuprofen.
I see.
Or I don't know if you remember when you guys were in the group, I was always chewing ice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that was, that's something that really helps me.
Cool it off.
Playing Boston Brass is not like any other gig. It's like
your book was an athletic endeavor. Yours and the horn, I would say, were definitely the two. Well, Andrew's from a it's just like most notes of most measures. Andrew with our tuba, I should say, the tuba book is going to be in. But in terms of the pure physicality of it, I would say yours and then horn, or in any quintet really, principal trumpet and principal first chair French horn in a brass quintet is a really important thing.
I really thought Chris was losing it when he was talking about chair testing himself. Like I was like, dude, no, you're the only one. You're fine.
For a horn player, isn't there any other chair? Even if they're playing fourth in an orchestra, they're playing first chair. Just ask them.
Principal fourth.
Yeah, ask them.
See that you do realize, Jose, that joke works a lot better with trumpet, right? But
but it's not the truth. Talk to horn players, man. Oh my words! Like, okay, all right. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was in the presence of greatness.
So what do you do? It sounds like what you've just started to tell us about in terms of practicing your basics, your fundamentals. It sounds like it takes a lot of concentration right away. Is there anything that you do leading up to the practice session? Even leading up might be in the 5 minutes beforehand to get you that focused, or maybe that you used to do if it's rote now, or do you just like flick a switch and it's good to go?
I used to not be so intense at the beginning of it, but then I started working a lot in studios in Miami, and that brought a whole different thought process to what I had to do, because you're on and then you're on. You have to be on. So for a long time, that was my goal. My goal was just to pick up the trumpet and go, mentally, pick up the trumpet and go mentally, So right now, physically it takes a little while, but mentally it's easy for me to just hit it on. What will help me at the beginning, it was always be thinking rhythm and music, and start singing. Even if you don't have perfect pitch, just start singing whatever it is that you're about to do. It'll get you mentally prepared for whatever it is. Physically, if I am tense, I start doing stretch exercises or things like that for a little bit. I don't really abuse it, and then take deep breaths. Of course. It's funny because the more you breathe, as you guys know, the more you learn that you are tense, which is a fantastic tool to start learning about your body, So I think it's the reason that I'm so obsessed with fundamentals and all of that is because it's such a learning tool of my own problems and my own things on a daily basis, man. It's probably because you're basically standing naked in front of a mirror, Well,
it's that home base, like you have to. I mean, the word fundamental is ideal. It's when all else fails and all kinds of stuff is going wrong, you go back to, is my breath working? Am I thinking in time? Am I dehydrated? It's just really simple. I try and give myself simple instructions because I'm a simple man. And I try to do the same thing for my students, because if you overcomplicate it, you're lost. And there's too many variables. And so if it's wind and song, well, then we got the choice of one of two options.
Right.
With our song.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's fantastic, and that's why I don't like to talk about tongue position. I don't like to talk about any of that stuff to my students
Because
because
their mouths are all different too, and with the
mhm,
way their teeth are structured is
mhm,
different, and so the thing that might work for you might anatomically be impossible
mhm,
for someone
mhm.
else.
Exactly. So I try to talk to them in words. You know, it's like, hey man, use the syllable that is the easiest for you, or that brings the least amount of obstruction or interference to your air stream when you're articulating. You know, we all have been taught to articulate with a T. Well, that is very invasive. If you say ta, it means you know you want to take your tongue to the chiropractor after saying a couple of times ta 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 ta.
A
You know
tongue
what I'm saying?
chiropractor.
Yeah, dude, gets so tense and it's so invasive. So
They
I
just
don't.
twist your tongue once, and then they tell you you have to come back every week
There you
though
go.
for a few years.
Yeah, if you go to Asia, they put needles in it.
There,
But yes. So yeah, I think that we get into a little bit of into the paralysis by analysis uh, sometimes with especially with younger kids, you know. But with the with this thing of once I get everything going with the fundamentals, man, where I know my air is happening and my articulation is happening, and I am feeling that I'm producing the most efficient sound that I can produce. Um, then I feel pretty much that I'm ready to start playing other things. That start moving around the horn, you know. I sometimes I'll just play one or two long tones and things are happening from the day before, and I just start moving on the horn, you know, moving air. Uh,
well, it sounds like you start from where you are, which is kind of a Zen concept, but it's just the sooner you accept this is the situation right now, this is where I am, and this is what I can do. Well, then you can start to decide or diagnose what do I need to do today, and then how do I best get there. But it's this
mm-hmm,
acceptance, an acknowledgement of this is where I am in the moment.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you 100% with that, man. You know, most days it's not a very good place, but hey, whatever.
You know, while we're talking about this, there's a question actually from one of the participants. I don't know how much time we're going to have for questions over the course of the week, but this one is kind of
Subject.
right on topic. And so it's from Jonathan DeSoto Jr. He says, when a teacher works on with the general brass, how do they go on to differentiate the process of inhalation, exhalation to reach their target audience? I've recently heard that the airstream should be as slow as it can be for that specific note, not meaning that the airstream is slow for every note, but it needs to be only as, I think if what he's saying is it needs to be only as fast as it needs to be. That's just a strange way of, it's kind of a cyclical way of answering it. But do you think about different speeds for different notes in terms of range and or volume, or where, how do you teach that, or how do you think about it, if at all?
Well, yeah, of course there are speeds of a speeds. You know, when you play in the high register, your air needs to be a lot faster in trumpet. Um, but again, if you start thinking about the speeds of air, you're gonna get yourself into a lot of trouble, in my opinion. So it's more of being aware that there are speeds of air. If you have a way of practicing how to play with faster air, you should definitely try to do that. But when you have the horn in your hands, you should probably not
So don't
overanalyze
overcomplicate it.
things.
I see.
Yeah, and try to you know, in my in my in my experience, and that's why I use this analogy all the time. I'm a trained monkey. The more I do things the right way, when I am away from music, when I am just in the calisthenics of the instrument, every time I catch myself doing something right, it translates right away to everything else I'm doing. So if I overanalyze things, I want to overanalyze things when I'm doing fundamentals. I don't want to overanalyze things anywhere else when it's related to music itself.
So it's probably, I mean, it's probably true. Well, it's true that
Yeah,
there are different
yeah,
speeds for
of
different
course.
notes. But good gravy. Yeah, I mean, there's a different amount of pressure that you have to use to push down the gas pedal in your car, but you don't really think about what that is.
You would crash very fast if you
would
did
crash
that.
very fast.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I'm laughing
especially
because
Jeff.
Hi.
I was just laughing because, I was like, yeah, I've been in the van when Jose's almost crashed it a few times. So, yeah, that's why I was laughing. But then he deflected by making fun of Jeff. And
Yeah, but I was the only one that would crash the van a lot of times. Only me. I never did that. Never.
No. I'm a very safe driver. I learned how to drive in Boston. Of course, I'm a safe driver.
I'm JD. Never drove anyway. Go ahead.
So, what if a student? Well, hold on. Let's stay with the basics. How do you ever record yourself doing fundamentals?
Oh yeah.
It's and how do you use that tool? It's painful.
Yeah. Well, it's very evident, man. Once you start hearing yourself playing a long tone, it's super evident what needs to change right away because of my years of experience. But our years of experience, we think we're not old, but we're pretty old, man. We've been doing this for a long time.
No one's accusing us of being young. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So once you start hearing yourself playing, first the quality of sound, is strictly related to what you're doing correct or what you're doing poorly. The attack is, everything has to do the continuity of the note, the core of the note, the call. It's so telling. It's so telling, So yeah, for sure, it's important to record yourselves when you're playing flow studies. Are you changing the color of the sound every time you switch a partial? Are you is your flow not happening with air? Is every note different? Are you going note by note? Are you playing the note the way you need to play? All of these things become so evident when you record yourself. I tell my kids that the best teacher that they have is their phone. And then if they have a good microphone that they can attach to their phone, like that MV88, whatever it is, SMV88, whatever, that's very telling of what they can do, So absolutely, I would suggest that, of course. Is it painful? Oh yeah, it is painful. Yeah, but nobody said it was going to be easy.
Yeah, I a few years ago, I started to record myself just simply doing 4-beat crescendos on whole notes, not even from like pianissimo to like fortissimo, just like like a soft dynamic piano to forte, and it was and I'm talking middle register, and it was incredible how hard it was to get like a perfect sideways cone, and to not I tended to have more crescendo in the first beat than like in the third beat, and then I would usually have a little bit of catching up to do in the fourth beat, but to just have the exact same amount of crescendo across all 4 of those beats and not do it to like double or triple forte was again, it took a lot of concentration. Yeah, a lot of concentration. It was really good though. I can tell you one thing, I wasn't bored. That's for sure. I mean, I'm talking middle dynamics for the most part, middle register whole notes. I was not bored at all. The time was flying by as I practiced that because it took so much attention.
Mm-hmm. So if you guys really, and another thing that it helps me, man, a lot is that I have my setup at home, but I record from home. So I'm listening to myself suck on a 24/7. So that's pretty, that's talking about standing in front of a mirror naked.
How much time are you spending listening to recordings? Ballpark. Has it changed over the days, or?
It's sometimes I can't. Sometimes I have to just go away. But when I am here, man, I'm listening back every 30 seconds. I'm listening back to something I did. What I just played, or was that take any good? My sound sounds tense. Dozens of the things. Did I play with the right style? The right style. Did my articulation was too proper for that, or not proper enough for that? All of those things. that especially if you have equipment and you put reverb on, it's great to track. But when you listen back and you take that reverb off, it's it's your best teacher, man.
Let's slide into style for a second. You just mentioned that when you're listening back, you're listening, is this the correct style? And so what are the telltale signs that you're not in the right style?
Number one, the way I'm playing rhythmically in the style. There are different ways of playing on time or not on time, playing the back of the beat, playing on top of the beat, playing, differently. Number two, the language is super important. What articulations am I using in that? Am I playing too properly? Am I playing too clean? Am I playing with enough sizzle in the sound? Am I playing with enough intention in the sound if I'm playing lead? Am I playing in the back of the beat enough if I am playing a swing tune? How am I cutting the notes? Am I releasing the notes where I need to release notes? Am I doing something musically with the tune, or am I just being a robot and playing what's in front of me? And that changes, from a style to style. When you do a crescendo or when you're playing a big band, it's completely different than you do a crescendo when you're playing Mahler, or when you're playing Mozart, or when you're playing, it goes from sound to approach, to aggressiveness, to speed of air, to warmth of air, depending on what style you're playing, and conception of the musical idea that's behind what it is that you're playing. So in order for me to go into styles, I have to start listening to a lot of music and have a sort of a hard drive with a search box, that when I hear this, what does it get me to? What does it remind me of that I have done, or that I have experienced, or that I have heard, and I can translate that into what I can play. So that goes and that relates directly to fundamentals and my capability of being who I am at that moment and being able to change who I am at that moment. Does that make sense?
It does. So you're saying that in the fundamentals, or in the warm up and in the fundamentals, you're focused on the beginnings of the notes, the timing of the notes, the articulation at both ends of the notes, and then it is with, once you have, I'm going to say nothing of all the fingerings and the rest of the articulations, but you build that toolbox so that when you, there's a Jeff Connor callback with the toolbox there, but inside joke, sorry people. So then,
no, people find inside jokes that they don't know what they find those super endearing always. I think we should.
Oh, good. I'll keep them coming. That reminds me. No, so then you go with that set of tools, and then in this situation, then I need to deploy it in this way. I need to combine it in this way. So the intensity of listening is the same, whether you're in the fundamentals because you're developing the skills, or you're trying to play the different styles because then you're deploying those skills. That's really interesting.
And then once, because I'm a trained monkey, once I set on that style, it's difficult for me to get out because I'm listening to it and I am in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's like, sort of like a dialect or a language speaking.
Like a language thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you noticed any common? I mean, could you speak how many languages? I know of at least 3. I mean,
poorly. 3.
Well, yeah, exactly. And so, do you think that's helped or impacted this in any way? Impacted this?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, because of the train of thinking. When you're listening to a language, when you're trying to speak a different language, you're paying way more attention to everything. And that's yeah, and with music is the same thing, man. I believe, and when I speak so intensively about the beginning of notes, is because the beginning of notes happen because of air. They don't happen because of the tongue. They because of vibration that happens between the ear and the lips. And if I am keeping myself honest about that, every time I play a note or start a note, then however I start that note with the articulation that I started is 100% my choice. And that will open me doors to be able to play with different articulations when I need to play with those articulations in different styles. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I like that you accompanied yourself with a little percussive.
Yeah, that was awesome.
soundtrack.
You were
Was
hitting that
kinda
piece
cool.
of paper, and it was like, it was musical
man.
actually.
Very
No, it was good.
No, it's
Sorry,
like
man.
super intense and dead on right. No,
It is.
fantastic,
No,
except-
it is. I met one of the mothers of Nicholas's one of the kids in his. He's in a Spanish immersion class. It's half native English speakers, half native Spanish speakers. And this woman who I don't remember where she was originally from, Honduras. Her English was amazing, like incredible, but she told me her name and I couldn't tell you what it was. This was months ago. And when I repeated it, she said, "Oh, you have a really that's a really great accent." She said, "Do you speak Spanish?" And I was like, "Not at all. I'm just a musician." Like I'm used to listening, I think, on that level. Not that I've ever thought of myself as like having a particularly good accent, but it really is about different languages use consonants differently. The vowel sounds sound different. And it really is just like music. And we're always talking. I'm talk all the time about sentences,
No.
or phrases or sentences. Well played, Jose. Phrases or sentences, notes or words. And you got to have sentences, not just words. But there's such a parallel between language and styles. So, and also the parallel that you can speak so many of them poorly.
Yeah, exactly.
See what I did there?
Yeah.
No,
I
got it. Hold on.
I speak more languages than you speak poorly.
Oh, that.
You speak
3
one
times as
poorly.
many languages as I do. Yeah.
All right, I need to talk a little more because I'm going to say something very nice
more?
about you. I'm going to say something very nice about you. You'll be happy for once that I'm talking. For anybody who doesn't know that we were in a band for many years, that explains all of the hijinks here. We in Banff, Canada, when we were at the International Trumpet Guild, we played in this large brass ensemble that was doing this movie score stuff. It was very, very cool. But one of the movies that was in this big, huge suite was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And like the big climactic scene, which is like between like the two combatants in this film, it's in this empty bullfighting ring. It's one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema. But there is a trumpet solo, and I remember specifically you playing that. That thing sounded like it was written for you. I mean, that's how impressive it sounded. You were talking about sizzle. I mean, it's like the bullfighting, everything. I mean, it sounded perfect to the point where while it was happening, I was trying to evaluate to make myself a better player and a better teacher, like what it was you were doing. And as you just said a few minutes ago, if you played a Charlier etude with the tone that you played that with, then it would, I would watch that whole video because it would be amazing to listen to, but like, that ain't it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it was, I mean, it sounded like it was written for you. It was just like
man.
the bravado, it was all there. I mean, it was like the climactic move, like physical duel. It was amazing. There's a lesson in there for all of us because you're like a chameleon. You're able to change your articulation, your releases, your sound, the dynamics, the accents, the weight of the notes, all of that stuff, like over and over and over again. Do you ever think intentionally like that, or do you just listen so much you go back to that hard drive and then that just comes out because you've done so much homework and applied it so much?
Well, I think, thank you, man. First of all, thank you. Probably I was pissed at Jeff. That's why I play like that. But anyway, yeah.
Get in line.
And I remember this vividly. This was 12. This was 12 years ago. This was 12 years ago, and I'm still talking about it. So yeah, this wasn't like a couple of years ago. But anyway,
Thanks,
so yeah, do you think intentionally about that stuff, or does it just come
I
out because of all the work you've done?
First of all, I think that we as instrumentalists, we're afraid of singing, and I don't think we can be. Well, we can be, but it's harder to be able to do different styles of music if you are afraid of singing those styles of music. So if I come out here and I start singing da 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 da, guess what? I'm not gonna be able to play well, will I? So it's the same thing.
I'm sitting on a Jeff joke, but I'm gonna just leave it.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna move along, people. So anyway, so it's that is is related directly with the way you hear and the way you're able to enunciate that, uh that voice that, in my opinion, so if I don't really care if I am singing in tune. I would love to be singing in tune, but if I am not, too bad. I want to be singing stylistically correct and in rhythm. For me, that's the most important part for myself. You know, uh, I discovered that the more I work on ear training, the more I work on listening, the better I sing pitch wise. Not not like a great singer. Um, but yeah, I think it has to do a lot with that, and then also just having an imagination about music and what people were thinking when they wrote it. Usually, when you hear, if you have heard enough music, um, when you hear two chords of something, and you hear the rhythm behind it, you can probably place yourself on a time and place where that was taking place. Sorry about saying place so many times, but where that was taking place, and try to emulate what was going on. So also understanding a little bit about the history of that music has to do a little bit with everything, or a lot with it. Trying to, if I like Dixieland, I need to listen to Dixieland. And I need to hear what it is that they're doing when they're playing Dixieland, and understand that most of those people, when they're playing, they're not reading music.
Right.
So their process toward music is completely earthy. It's not a process that has been schematized. It hasn't been put in a box. It hasn't been packaged for sale. It's just what it is. So I need to recreate that. I can't come in on from the classical approach of playing the instrument cleanly. Yes, in the classical approach of playing the instrument, to make a great sound, to have a great technique, and to be able to change to what I need. But conceptually, I can't come from that. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And actually, there's sort of there's a lot of through threads, but one of them is mindset, and the mindset that you have to be in your fundamentals, and the mindset that you have to be in order to interpret and or reinterpret the music that you're playing. And one of the other things we had on the list to talk to you about today is being in recording sessions. And I've always been a huge fan of your playing, and I think one of the most fortunate parts about being in the band when I was in is how consistent of a player you were, and how consistent of a player JD is, and Chris then later, which I think also goes back to mindset. So when you've been in probably more recording sessions than you can remember at this point, with everything from brass quintets to solo recordings to pop groups. And so where are you mentally when you're in those recording sessions? We're all kind of used to wearing headphones now, but I know for a lot of people that's an adjustment when they first start playing their instrument and hearing part of it acoustic. But mentally, where are you when you're in a session?
It is funny, man. It is funny because I am mentally in different places when I'm in different styles of sessions. They always have to do with rhythm, and they always have to do with singing. But it's not depending on how much of thought I have to give to what I am doing technically. Meaning, is the music very difficult to read? Does the music have a pattern that is easy to follow? So basically, I should not say what I was going to say, but anyway. I was going to say, well, I was going to say
right
whatever, man. If the music is good, it's easy.
Oh.
If the music is not good, it's not easy. Period.
Yeah, yeah.
You
It's just like
understand what I'm
equipment. If equipment is good, it makes it easy to sound like yourself. If equipment's bad, Jose Sibaja still sounds like Jose Sibaja when I'm a functional trumpet that's just not great. He's just going to have to work his tail off. It's the same thing with music that's not well written or not well thought out. You're still going to sound like Jose, but yeah, you got to work a lot harder.
And it's funny because I have been in recordings where here in Nashville, you show up to a recording and it can't be any more professional. Everything is written perfectly. You have a copyist there. Everybody it's there on time. Everything is great. And I play recordings where there's nothing in front of you, and they sing from the booth, and you have to play what they sing. So it's my job to make it sound great no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So to finish that question, Lance, it has to do a lot with where I am rhythmically with what I'm playing. And if I'm able to mentally sing through what I'm playing, most of the time, I'm going to be okay. If I really have to stop and think about something, then I'm going to start working hard and then start sweating. So your reading skills are super important, but more important than your reading skills is the ability of recognizing pitch while you read and hearing that pitch in your head. That really helps. And in my case,
how do you're teaching college students now, and so how are you? So fundamentals, rhythm, listening. What assignments are you giving your students? And a different way to come at it is your most successful students, what do they have in common in terms of those threads that you're trying to teach them? The most important thing, I believe, I haven't been teaching that long, probably 5 years or 4 years, I don't know anymore. But it's they understand, they use, and they understand the process of practicing fundamentals. The quicker that they get to that level, the easier it is for them to start really getting into what I'm trying to get to accomplish with them. And then for some of them, it's very important for me to keep hammering the ear training part of things. You're going to be as good as your ears. You can practice 25 hours a day. It doesn't matter. If you can't hear it, you can't play it. That's the way it goes. You're going to be as good as your ears is a T-shirt waiting to happen, man. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I knew we'd get a good quote out of him. It took 47 minutes, but, that was good.
Hey, man, I haven't heard one quote from you. It's been... I'm kidding. Anyway,
you were gonna say it's been 12 years and I haven't heard. No, 15 years, whatever it's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
No, you always hear Pat Sheridan, who was the last session here. He's always talking about ear and air. He never talks about accuracy ever, because ear and air, you get those two things correct, and you have the accurate. If you get ear as good as Jose's and you get air as good as Jose's, then you get the accuracy of Jose. Like if you've done the homework, that's how that works. Yeah, that's how that works.
Whatever the accuracy is.
Yeah. I was talking about you when you're at your best.
Sheridan knows things, man. He knows stuff.
He does. Turns out he does.
Yeah.
It turns out that he does. So I want to ask you one more question about being in recording sessions. I remember the first recording that I did with Boston Brass, which was the album Within Earshot, which I'm really proud of how that came out, and proud of my playing. If I'm being frank, but the process was not fun. That was like 5 of the most stressful days of my entire career. And it wasn't like the entire time, but like, I mean, I was waking up, every morning, like earlier than I needed to. And I was like focused like for the next 12 hours until the recording session started. There was no chill really. So it all ended up good. But I remember Rich Kelly telling me, he said, you're going to do a couple of these, you're going to learn to really love the process. And at the time I was like, I'm not so sure about that, Richard. But it's true. But what advice do you give to somebody who has not done a lot of recording sessions, even if they're just talking about like with their phone and a nicer mic and they're trying to make a recording for school or something like that? What's your advice to them?
That worrying about the recording session while you get there is too late.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Geez, that's back-to-back good quotes, Lance. I'm completely disoriented. You need to take it from here. Yeah, that's awesome. Keep going. Yeah, that's great.
It's too late. It's too late. If you're going to record something professionally, the preparation happens in your house. So when you get there, it's what it is. Once you're okay with that, then you're going to have a better chance of having a good time at a recording session. Now, if you want to be in control of everything that happens in your life, being a recording musician is not for you.
That's good. That's good too.
It's not for you. It is not for you. Being a recording musician is not for you, because when you show up to a studio, you don't know they're gonna put in front of you. When I go to a recording session here in town, I take 5 horns with me, because I don't know what they're going to put in front of me, And then I got to be able to transpose. I always end up playing the stuff on my B-flat trumpet because I like B-flat trumpet, or C trumpet.
What information do you usually have? Or, do you know what the artist is, what the challenge is, you just like, there's a session and it's at 10 a.m., see you. Can
you do this at 10 a.m., man? Yeah. And then if the music is really hard and they have access to it before, they may send it to you, a day before or 2 days before, if the music is really challenging. If not, and if you're playing lead or something like that, and, they want to make sure that you're okay with whatever is happening and you're prepared and they have access to the music, they'll send it to you. If they don't have access to the music, it's like, hey, man, good luck.
And then etiquette-wise, so what's the vibe like? You show up and kind of what happens if you're not familiar with the process? What's the scene?
The most important thing when you're playing a recording session is to understand, if it's not your recording session, if you're not the artist, is to understand that you're there to play your instrument,
right,
not to give opinions.
Right.
So if you follow that, you're golden. You're not there to give opinions. It's not your recording. It's not your chart. It's not your arrangement. You're there to play your part at the best of your abilities. And you're not there to tell people around you what to do.
I bet it's helpful if someone happens to ask your opinion when you can make a quick suggestion politely, like when asked. But I think it's probably...
Even then, you have to be really careful.
Yeah, of course.
Because there are many people in the room that can get hurt.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and you don't know what went into the question that's being asked.
Right.
And how much drama was there behind this?
There might be as much history as like the three of us have.
Hey,
yeah, exactly.
That's exactly right. Like, so even from the trumpet, stylistically sort of thing, how would you play that? And then you play it, and then you hear, see?
Like,
well,
oh boy.
Yeah.
You're like, did I just anger the person who is responsible for having me back, or the other person, or are they both? Yeah.
The most important thing is to stay quiet and to make everybody's job easy.
Yeah.
To do that, you have to be really prepared.
Rex Martin used to say, he wasn't talking about recording sessions per se, although he did thousands of those. So he was just talking in general. He used to say, Your job as a musician is to make those around you sound better than they actually are, and that their job is to make you sound better than you actually are, meaning meet them when not even necessarily in the middle. Like meet them if somebody's not having a great like pianissimo day and you notice that and you got a two-part thing, just like boost your volume just a little bit just to like to leave them not hanging, you know? I mean, that kind of thing. And that goes for professionalism too. It's just to Yep, is if you're on a crappy gig, everybody is on the crappy gig. It's not like half the room is like, this is awesome. Everybody knows it, and you don't need to point it out because the contractor probably also realizes it's a crappy gig. And maybe they could have controlled it. A lot of times they couldn't, and you can be somebody who's piling on, or you can just kind of, you know, just play the trumpet, keep your head down, and then, yeah.
The only time I've broken that rule is when I'm recording some music, and it's Latin music, and I am the only Latino in the room, and somebody's trying to say how we need to phrase this,
right?
And it's not the way it goes,
right?
So I'll go, excuse me, I believe,
right? Yeah, those are extenuating circumstances. You
heard my accent is there for a reason.
Let's get in the weeds. Can we get in the weeds for just a second? We don't have much time left, but do you have a set of mics or a microphone that you really prefer, or a type of microphone that, you know, when you go into a session like that, or if you're buying one or suggesting a student buy one?
Usually here in town, it's no problem. Usually here, they always use ribbon mics.
Ribbon.
Yeah, for trumpet, ribbon mics are best. In my personal microphone, I love Royer microphones. I have a Royer 122 and a Royer 121.
Those are beautiful. Yeah,
I also have a RC44, a copy of an RC44 that works great for solo stuff. And I have another microphone, which is a condenser mic that I hardly use, which is an AKG 414.
And so if you are suggesting to a student who might be on a budget, what do you tell them to buy? Just to, like,
to buy the cheapest ribbon mic that they can, which is good quality, maybe Cascade, which is a really, really good cheap, $500, $600.
And the ribbon mic you prefer, why, over a condenser? Or
because the ribbon mics kill a little bit of the 2000 kilohertz. They're tame it down a little bit.
Takes a teeny bit of the edge off, just warms it up a little bit.
For trumpet, it really helps. You know, for trumpet, you don't need much help in a trumpet for brilliance
and then those are pretty sensitive. So how far do you need to be away from those? I'm
probably 3 to 4 feet far away from them. If I'm playing flugel or something like that, I'm not so careful. But if I'm playing trumpet, yeah. But it's a whole thing, because that opens a topic of talking about preamps, and then talking about what you cookie. Yeah, exactly. And then when you put it into what is your converter, and it takes a while and a lot of money to find what works for you. But once you find it, it's fantastic, man. It's a great thing to have.
Jose makes a really good living. He can loan you money if you need help finding what works for you. So just
I do have a person that works for me that collects that too.
So we've got like 2 minutes left here. So this is going to be quick. But what advice do you give to somebody who wants to get into chamber music, playing a brass quintet, like the actual, playing in a brass quintet? Like what's the thing to think about the most? Is it the articulation? Is it volume? Is it phrasing? Like, what is it?
In my opinion, it's your ears. Your
Right.
ears. I don't believe there is anybody who is right or wrong in a brass quintet. Well, pitch wise, style wise, and things like that. Yeah, but one of the most important things in a brass quintet is pitch. Or in a chamber music group is pitch, and a style. So you have to have great ears and understand that it's not. If you're playing whatever you're playing first before than anybody else, everybody has to play with you. If somebody else plays something, you have to go what they play. I don't care what your opinion is.
Yeah.
You finish whatever you're doing and then you discuss about it. But you have to have ears. be willing to be a citizen of the ensemble.
Right.
Would you rather sound right or be right?
Yes. That's the question. That's the question. Yeah. I mean, the answer's both, really, but but when you can only choose one, it's better to, yeah. Nobody leaves a brass quintet concert thinking like, you know,
he was right.
That band, yeah, exactly. Like that band had really good time except for those two. You know, it was just like that band the time was a mess, you know. Yeah, and they might be able to very well tell that it was the tuba and the euphonium player that were the problem.
But
they still leave saying Boston Brass's time was a mess, not like, you know, they don't have a 1 to 10 grading on the rhythm of each of the 5 people. So yeah, it's better to sound right than to be right.
I think that quote applies for music in general, in my opinion, man. You know, it's like that, and then when you are in the moment, it's not the time to address things.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
You wait until the end and address things, you know, especially if you're in a recording session or something like that, and you try to be really smart and you think that you're really smart and you think that you can solve the issues of the world. Wait till the end.
and then you probably still shouldn't say anything.
Exactly.
But yeah.
If you're smart enough, when your head cools down, you're going to rethink that and then not say anything about it. If they ask you, sure, go ahead.
The best life advice I've ever received was anytime that I'm going to say anything even remotely contentious or potentially contentious with anybody, that I ask myself 3 questions. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said by me? And does this need to be said by me right this second? And almost always, I don't get 3 yeses. You can always open your mouth later, right? You could always talk to that contractor like in a week, you know, when they're not in the middle of dealing with that terrible. I know I'm not saying that you should, but like it's always better than like piling on in the moment, you know. I almost never get 3 yeses, and that goes for musical situations and non-musical situations.
When you see you're talking to a contractor and you see a contractor writing while you are, you know, it's not that he's paying attention, it's that he's crossing your phone.
That's funny. Yeah, there you go. We're going to end on that life lesson. Jose, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks so much.
I told you, Lance. I told you he was going to be good. Lance wouldn't believe me.
Yep.
So.
David, well, I want to thank you guys sincerely. And the thing that I'm most impressed about is Andrew's hair.
Well, you know what?
And we've come full circle.
I'm going to close this out. I'm being nice to you again, Jose. And one of the reasons that we were talking about when we were trying to decide what to talk to you about, the thing, you know, I've been out of the band as long as I was in the band. And one of the things that stays with me about you and your approach was that you walk the walk in terms of the fundamentals. This was the thing that I witnessed you do day after day after day after day after day. And I was out with you as late as... You know, we were out as late, and you were yeah, exactly. But you were hitting the fundamentals the next day, and so I just thought, you know, when Andrew brought that up as a topic, I thought, man, that's perfect, because it's not someone who just talks about it because it's, you know, it's the right thing to talk about, but you exhibited that just day after day. So
thanks,
that was
man.
Great. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that.
Well, I was lucky to have a great teacher that he was always on that, you know. So, yeah.
All right, that's going to do it, and we will see all of you in about You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dedos and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.